point of these events, to be honest. The whole point of an event like this is for the people to see the stars that they've just seen at the Tour de France on TV in person, and have a bit of a celebration event while seeing some racing in their local city. And Herentals has been an event that's had some pretty, of course. Wout van Aert was born in Herentals, so he's the local hero, just like Philipsen as well, a bit, because he's from next door. Now, this event, I think, is the 36th edition of the Heylen Vastgoed post-tour criterium, and the first one was held in 1934, so that was before I was born, and most of you most likely as well, where I think Louis Rules was the winner. Confession time, I have no clue who that is, but like I said earlier, there's some pretty solid riders on the start line this time and also in previous years. But I guess we'll find out in, well, maybe roughly 90 to 100 laps after we're done with our vehicle circuit at the moment. Tim Merlier is actually one of those riders at Quickstep where, like you can see on the left bottom of the screen right now, he is such a certainty of victories, even in a season like this one where he's literally been injured half the season and he still managed to get like 9 victories so far. Now, he DNF'd this Tour de France, but with 3 stage wins, I don't think Quickstep will be complaining with him. And if I'm trying to not be controversial about this, Remco Evenepoel was the big man for the team, for Soudal Quickstep in the run into the season. Then he left for Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe, but Tim Merlier's always kind of been the man carrying half of the backpack of Soudal Quickstep. And in that sense, he's finally being probably deserved for a few years already, now that he's out of the potential shadow of Remco Evenepoel within that team. So I'm enjoying a Tim Merlier-led Soudal Quickstep this year, and he's enjoying being on top of that vehicle, is how I'm perceiving it. Waving at everybody. What a day. Now, I've said it before, there's actually a bit of a link between this man Merlier and Wout van Aert, who is also the local hero here. Wout van Aert is not present. He's not actually racing in today's criterium in Herentals here, but he's present in a different race at the moment, and that race is the Post-Noord Danmark Rundvaart, which I think is the Tour of Denmark, basically. And in the first 2 stages, the first stage he ended up winning a versatile sprint, or at least a reduced group sprint. He won again today, and, well, spoilers, my bad. He won again, but he beat everybody, and that was a sign that he's not just a random rider, that he's a prominent rider, can be a World Tour ready rider. And Intermarché was the first team to see that, and then eventually he moved over to UAE Team Emirates, I think maybe 1.5 years ago. Belgian champion, outside of that, supportive rider in a lot of other races. So that is I don't think they can complain, is what I'm trying to say. He's probably also not the biggest Sally rider on the team either, so I think that's a pretty good run. But Jasper Philipsen's data is showing on the left bottom of the screen, and I want to have a quick chat about that, man, because he had a pretty solid first half to the season, but I think he might have been disappointed by his first half of the Tour de France, and maybe his whole Tour de France. Like, the team of Alpecin did a strong tour by the end of it, including 3 stage victories, one of Jasper Philipsen on stage 17, which was a glorious breakaway victory. Then Mathieu van der Poel with 2 breakaway victories. No, you can count the last one as a breakaway victory, but the first one in Ussel, I think stage 9, was definitely a breakaway victory. The Champs-Élysées one was a perhaps the most epic stage of the entire Tour de France. I really enjoyed the last 20 kilometers of that, so that was fun. But that is their race saved. On the other hand, Jasper Stuyven, we see his data on the left bottom now. He's had a fantastic Giro d'Italia. Then the Tour de France came afterwards. He was also prominent there, I think, on stage 17 that Philipsen won. And unfortunately for Jasper, he got caught in the last 6 kilometers. So that was a bit sad. But at the end of the day, he's been such a prominent signing. And it's not just as a lead out, it's also the fact that he podiumed Roubaix. At Quickstep before this year, the last couple of years, was not respectable in terms of results in the actual cobble classics. I'm not talking the sprint classics where a Merlier can win, but I'm talking about the actual cobble classics. And I think Stuyven has been doing pretty good there, putting them back on the map. So that is the great result, the great outcome of that signing. Now, I think what I was going to say earlier about Merlier and Wout van Aert is that they've got a bit of a connection, because back in the day, Merlier and Wout van Aert were riding together at but the the first breakthrough of Merlier came around partially with the help of Wout van Aert, because they rode like the same race that Wout van Aert is riding at the moment, which is green, and we can see him into the distance there. So that is a stoic ride on that vehicle. I don't know how to describe that. He is the third last man of the lead out of Jasper Philipsen at the Tour de France, and also quite a viable domestique in the cobble classics, prominent there too. I think on the might have been the Molenberg at RVV or another race in the classic season, but Jonas Rickaert is one of those cornerstones within the team. I vividly remember the breakaway stage of last year with Mathieu van der Poel, where they were both in the breakaway together. That's you that he's not just a domestique, that he can do more than domestiquing, that he can be competitive in breakaways, that he can be competitive in smaller cobble classics, but he's, in the lack of a better word, gelled to his leaders, and rightfully, because I think in the distance that let me look at my cheat sheet here for a second, but I think in the distance that might be Dries van Gestel, but it's a bit too pixelated for me to confirm at the moment. He's the another lead out for Soudal Quickstep. He's part of the actual lead out for Manier at the Giro d'Italia. Jasper's enjoying his drive right now. To be clear, you're not watching a race of cyclists and cars. They're actually going to have a cycle later, and they're going to do so quite a few laps, roughly 100. I think they should. Yeah, there we go. It's time, guys. We've got. They're currently walking into the final stretch to the finish line, so I bike pretty soon, and will actually be competing in a cycling event pretty soon. But these are not the only riders in the event, by the way. We have the likes of Milan Fretin, who was decent at the Tour de France, got 2 top 5 positions. His team was not the most visible, but he got the results that were up for offer for a rider of his stature, which is a solid tier 2 sprinter, I would say, within the Tour de France level. Also on the Champs-Élysées, his team was the one that was didn't work. He had to offer himself up too early in that sprint, but still a guy with a chance. I'm not sure where he was born, so let me look that up for a second here, because don't know if he's a local or not. He's from Henk, so he's not exactly a local. He's from Limburg, so the right side of Flanders. Next to him, we also have Jente Biermans from that team. We've got a head-to-head on the left bottom. Oh la la, look at these graphics. Jasper Philipsen and Tim Merlier in a head-to-head. Overall victories. To be honest, we can compare these stats and we can compare the individual season wins, but I think the reality is that Tim Merlier right now is considered the better sprinter of the two. If we look at the actual World Tour results, Tour de France especially made that very clear. The stage 8 finish to Bergerac by Tim Merlier was sprinting out of Narnia, is how I'd classify it. So out of like position 25-20, out of the broadcast view, so you couldn't see him. And to still win a race like that, You got to be a special sprinter, and there's not many sprinters in history that I've seen pull something off. Marcel Kittel maybe once, maybe one from Gaviria in 2018 in the Giro with such an impressive sprint. We know Mark Cavendish is a pretty solid sprinter at his best days, but Tim Merlier might be closing into to some of the best sprinters with the way he's sprinting. He doesn't need a billion victories to prove that. And the reason why is also because he started his career late. That's one thing. But on top of that, he also ended up not starting the Tour de France many years. I think he started the Tour de France together with Jasper and then had to share lead out duties with him. As in, one would sprint one day, the other would sprint another day. During his Alpecin days still. Ooh, that feels like a long time ago at the moment. It's quite intriguing that if you look back to all these riders, that half of these riders have ridden with each other at some point during some team. Whether it's Merlier and Philipsen, whether it's Merlier and Wout van Aert, who's not here today, you can find a link somewhere, even if it's looking back at the actual Flanders Baloise days of Milan Fretin and René Herentals, for example. You've got quite a few links, so these riders might be riding for different teams, but they're definitely friends of the bike, is how I'd say. I'll get back to you there. Each lap is 1.8 kilometers, so it should be anywhere between 80 and 100 kilometers on paper. So don't take my word for that. We see that René Herentals is currently at the front. It's all still chill at the moment. They're doing a bit of a slow lap, I think, to show themselves to the audience, because I think you and I both know that the core essence of an event like this, it's to show the riders that have just been touring around France in the Tour de France at their possible best level on the bike, to have a possibility for the fans of said riders to have access to the teams and riders, because they want to see the riders from up close. As you can see, we've also got some POV cameras on the bike. One of them is on the bike of Mauro Kuilits from Lotto Intermarché, and also one on the bike on paper of Niels Verdijk. I'll confirm later whether they're on both bikes or not. Let's hope we haven't lost one already. Ola, I won't consider that an attack. That's not an attack. That's riding 10 watts faster for 10 seconds. I'm not having that. I'm sorry, I'm not counting that. But the peloton is definitely staying together for this first lap of this criterium. By the way, a little anecdote of the city of Herentals. There's a man in the history of cycling called Rick van Looy, who I think he's got like 370, 367 victories throughout his career. So pretty good cyclist. I think second only Medics in that regard. And he might have been world champion twice in the 1960s. So a very prominent cyclist in the history of the sport. He's also called the Emperor, or the Keizer in Dutch, of Herentals. So he's a local hero, just like Wout van Aert is basically in this area. I think he might have been the first man to win all 5 monuments in his career. So legendary rider. Unfortunately, passed away in 2024. So that's a very sad thing happening at the age of 90, though. So that's a very respectable age. And yeah, let's move on to the actual race here, because they're slowly but surely, should I say, speeding up? They're not going too fast yet, so I won't go for that yet. Rune is still talking to, I think that's Vlad van Mechelen from Bahrain Victorious. He's also had a relatively solid Tour de France. Like, you can't expect Vlad van Mechelen to start winning stages left and right in the Tour de France, but he was present in breakaways, strong in breakaways. So yeah, even in the final stage, Champs-Élysées stage, he was a prominent rider in that breakaway. We've got a small gap. 3 riders with a 1 meter gap on the peloton of roughly 30 riders. We've got some smaller riders in this race as well. I'll go over them in a bit. I just want to scroll through the first lap before we continue. But thank you for everybody. Chat. I'm going to try and get you involved in the actual commentary a little bit. Now, In this race, in this event, we've also got two riders from Flanders Balwaze, Vincent van Hemelen and Wart van Hoof, but I'll put that to the side for a second because we have a 2-4-6 rider breakaway, including two riders from the King of the Flemish Mountains team. I assume that also includes Niels Verdijk. And Rune Gergots is the front leading the charge. So we've got some big names in that group. There is Vlad van Mechelen on the back of, I think, the Mauro Kaulitz bike camera. So he's present. I assume that's his bike camera. 6 riders of the front at the moment. This is the first lap of the event. I'm not completely sure how many laps there are, but I know this one is the first. So, hey, I'm keeping you up to date. Now, in this group at the front, we see quite a couple of riders. Let me try and dissect who we've got here. Jonas Ricard is present. Not so sure about that. We definitely have the team of Balwaze Het Poetsbureau, so I assume that's Jarno Bellens. 2 riders, or do you consider Jasper Philipsen next? To that? Would you say Jonathan Milan should be on that same level? Where do you see the top sprinters at the moment? I want you to give your top 5 in the chat if you want to. But for now, the front group is still that 6 rider group at the front of the race. In the peloton here, we have still a 25-man group together. It's not gigantic, so my current assumption is that it will all come back together later, but you never know. You never know. And Rune Gergots is definitely the biggest name in that front group. We've got a second chasing group with 5 riders including a Cofidis rider, so that has to be either Fretin or his companion in the race, Jente Biermans. My first guess would be Jente Biermans because Fretin is more of a sprinty type, so maybe he wouldn't be jumping at this point. Who knows? It's still possible. I was talking earlier about the team of Flanders Balwaze, who, for a lot of the riders in this race, were the origin team where they started their career, including this man at the front, Rune Gergots. And this POV camera shocked me to my core. They're going at such high speeds in the middle of a street, a town, a city, a street circuit. Terrifying. But I was saying Flanders Balwaze, they've got 2 riders-ish in this race called Vincent van Hemelen and also Wart van Hoof. So actually pretty decent riders. And on top of that, the sad reality is that that team is actually in some trouble this year. So Flanders Balwaze, the actual sponsor, I think the Flemish government, Flanders, whatever it's called, they might be pulling out, or they have decided to pull out their sponsorship by the end of the year. So that team is looking for additional partnerships for the time being, and I truly hope they manage to find that, because this might be like a sign of the death of the development teams outside of World Tour structures, because World Tour structures like Alpecin, for example, have their own development roster. Like Quickstep have their own, I think, like one dev team officially, and then multiple junior teams they work with. So to see everything go to those World Tour structures and in the process Flanders Balwaze disappearing, I'd rather see both existing if I had my ideal world in front of me. You might agree with that, you might not. Tempo in this group is quite a bit higher than the first lap, that's for sure. This is one of those 2 ATAR riders. Let me take a look at the full name of the team. ATAR van Gorp Projects CT. So I assume that's a continental team from the CT, or cycling team, probably cycling team. Thomas Verheijen and Axel Schepens. One of them is in the front group, and looks like it's back together actually, because we have the 2 riders from the Kings of the Flemish Mountains team at the front, trying to get some spectacle involved in this race, and Rune Gergots is not too far behind that. I'm trying to figure out whose rider which rider the camera has here, but it's definitely showing one of the riders of the Atar team, that's for sure. But like I said earlier, these events are all about getting people together to enjoy the passion of cycling. I love cycling. I love being in these events, but I wish I was there by the side of the race right now, if I'm being honest. And that's also what all these people are looking for, because they're all looking for this event to get close to their idols, the riders they saw on TV. Like, not all these riders in this peloton were at the Tour de France, but the top riders here were Jasper Philipsen, Tim Merlier, and their leadouts individually. So the Ricards and Stuyvens of the world, and to be able to see them up close just after the 4 stages, in the sense of 3 by Merlier and 1 by Jasper Philipsen. And arguably, Jasper Philipsen could have won the final stage on the Champs-Élysées if Mathieu van der Poel didn't exist. But hey, let's be honest about it. I'm Belgium. I consider him a Belgian man anyway. That is so controversial, but let's continue. It looks like we're staying relatively together at the moment, and it's still Atar at the front. We have the man Rune Hergots in the Belgian champ jersey in second wheel there. Oh, that's a bit of a move by Cofidis, so we might have a breakaway upcoming, and Rune is not exactly closing it, so 3 riders off the front at the moment, maybe 4. Let's see what the camera gives us in a second after this corner. 4, 5, 6. So once again, a group of 6 riders, and the gap is not gigantic, but we do have a breakaway right now with one of the Flanders Baloise riders, so either Van Hemelen or Van Hoof, and also Paul Sauzen present in that breakaway. We've got, I think, 3 riders from that team in this race, including Jordi Corsus, also Lars Daalmans and Wies Nuyens. Jonas Ricard just vibing past our screen as we speak. By the way, of course, if I fail to recognize a rider that you know, drop it in the chat, then I know who it is for next time. Because while I know all these World Tour riders, I'm not too familiar with the team of Atar, Van Gorp, and so forth, but I'm happy to learn on the job. So I'm reading the chat on YouTube, use it. Still that 6-man breakaway at the front of the race, and I think that might be not the red jersey of Lotto, but the red jersey of Cyclist Van den Plas Hepa. That must be Bengt Dalmans in that breakaway, and I don't want to make any assumptions, but maybe someone can confirm that Bengt and Lars on opposing teams. So Cyclist is Bengt, and then Lars from Paul Sauzen might be related, perhaps. Don't know many people who are called Dalmans, so that is my first assumption. Yeah, this camera right here is a POV camera in the peloton, so we can track the riders in there at the moment. There's a tiny gap to a breakaway now. I'm gonna be honest, I have no clue how many laps we are into the race and how many laps are left, but we're still in the first of the race. I can confirm that. Yes, that's me on the left bottom. My name is Benji Nas, and I'm your companion for today, your friendly neighborhood commentator for today's live stream. I'm not exactly the go-to live commentator for events. I don't do this often, but I enjoy doing it today. So I'm having fun. I hope you are as well. 6-man breakaway, one rider bridging. I think that's an other rider in the peloton. The tempo is speeding up a little bit, and we're gonna see that a few times in this race because it's a criterium. So they blitz through the streets. It's not like there's massive wind in between the houses. And by the way, I was speaking earlier about the weather. Looks like the road is still a little bit wet in places. Can be a little bit slippy on the actual street cobbles. But in terms of the weather right now, it looks like it's sunnying up a little bit. So that seems to be better for the riders for sure. And hey, there's been so many heat waves in Belgium and any other place in this continent, to the point that I think everybody wants a little bit of rain to at least make sure the gardens don't perish. I think this is the man from Shifting Gears on screen right now. My assumption is Arthur Gaines. I've only got one man from that team on my cheat sheet, so let's hope there's not two of them riding around the circuit, otherwise I'm in trouble. In the wheel, we have a Paul Sausen man and also Jonas Ricard, but in this shot we can see the gap, and it's not a gigantic gap, so it's gonna come back together. I think we're gonna have a few breakaways in this race. We already have our second breakaway at the moment in the race, so maybe in a couple laps it all comes back together and we see a new breakaway. But for now, it is 7 riders at the front of the race. I am trying to figure out what the camouflage green team is in the breakaway. Maybe this big brain square, Thibaut Engelen? Maybe not. Ay, ay, ay. In the peloton, we have perhaps Quickstep trying to control. I'm trying to convey what those jerseys are at the front, because I must confess, Soudal Quickstep's jersey this year is not the most recognizable in a peloton of mostly navy blue kits in the cycling, so I hope that they figure out recognizable in the future. Apologies for inserting my fashion police opinions in today's commentary. Looks like we have 7 or 8 riders now. Maybe that rider, Thibaut Engelen, might have bridged. But hey, we spoke about all the big riders already. We've spoken about a few of the smaller riders in the race as well. We saw a Visma Lease bike rider in the peloton as well, which is Matthijs van Kerkhoven. But a bit of a shout out, by the way. This event is called Herentals Fietst Feest, which is basically in English Herentals Cycles Party. That's my translation, and these are the sponsors of that event. So I gotta give a tributal shout out to those sponsors to make sure I don't lose my job next year. But on a serious note, we're back to the racing. 7 riders in this front group right now. This live stream is hosted by SafeStream on YouTube, by the way. I assume you know that because you're watching it as we speak. In the peloton, this man right here I have not spoken about at all yet. Pinarello Q36.5. He was riding in a whiter kit in the Tour de France, but now back in the navy blue kit of Q46.5 Pinarello. So the same team as Tom Pidcock. This is Mr. I assume Frédéric Frison, but it could be Quinten Hermans as well. We haven't seen his face yet. I'm trying to deduct it from the physique of the rider, so my guess is gonna be that was Quinten Hermans. Of course, a puncher type rider. Very strong in Classica Cayenne at the start of the year. I think he was working for Tom Pidcock in that race. There we go. Looks like we have the breakaway coming through what I assume is the starting arch. Yeah, it's not. It's 150 meters to go is that arch. So we're slowly but surely learning about the parkour as we go. This is the next lap, and I think we've had about 10 laps now, but on the left bottom, we can see some information about Frédéric Frison, age 34. He was a pretty prominent rider in the roster of Lotto in his last year there, then went to Q36.5 Pinarello. And yeah, in terms of results, we can't really say much because he's mostly a domestique in that roster. So he's going to be working in the Belgian 1.1 races on the calendar. So if you don't really know how the cycling calendar works behind the scenes, this is Frédéric Frison on screen as we speak. That's the man we were talking about. So 1.1 race is basically I'd classify it as a third level, a third tier race. On the right, we can see the Visma rider Matthijs van Kerkhoven. I think that's a man for the future, to be honest. I think Matthijs has had some really good races. We get confirmation, by the way, on the left bottom that this camera is on the bike of Mr. Mauro Kailitz of Lotto Group 1T, or Lotto Intermarché, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, Van Kerkhoven is most likely going to be present in World Tour races next year, is my guess for the team of Visma Lease bike, in the same way that Tim Rex is. Tim Rex was fantastic at the Giro d'Italia, and I expect Matthijs van Kerkhoven to also make that step next year. So definitely a man of the future. And reality is, Visma Lease bike needs to do something, because they just had their worst Tour de France since, maybe 2016, because after that they had Groenewegen, then Roglic coming fifth or something in GC in 2018. Then 2019 came around with Kruijswijk maybe finishing on the podium. Then 2020, where Roglic, well, the team gifted Roglic's victory away by riding way too passively during the race. That's my opinion. But yeah, Roglic could have won that Tour de France 2020, but did not, because that was the rise of Tadej Pogacar. And well, after that year, they were always present in GC Visma-Leasewijk, but that was not the case this year after the crash of Jonas Vingegaard on stage 16 before the Plateau de Solaison climb. Looks like the breakaway has been eaten up by the peloton, and a new one is forming with 5 or 6 riders at the front end. Flanders-Baloise is setting a bit of tempo in the peloton. One thing is certain, we see Herentals and so forth in the peloton. It is Lotto Intermarché, Lotto Group 1T, and also Cofidis in that breakaway. So that could be Mauro Kuilitz and either Biermans or Milan Fritin. And in the chase we have, trying to deduct it, I think the cyclist rider is back. And that cyclist rider is, forgot his name, my bad, Bengt Dalmans, cyclist van den Plas Hepa. So a smaller team in the sport of cycling, but hey, they're riding with the big guns. So I think those riders are also really enjoying races like this, where they get to ride together with the Jasper Philipsens, the Tim Merliers in the world, and share the road with them in a race, because in real life, next to the races, they might train together in some sense if they're from the same local area. There we go. A breakaway of 5 riders forming at the moment. And the peloton, of course, tempo as we speak. This right here is, I think, Milan Fritin right now. So based on that assumption, trying my best to recognize the faces right now. This man looks more like a Fritin than a Biermans to me. Hola. We've got to move by an Alpecin rider. And I think that is the cyclist kit just behind there. So we've got in this group quite a few solid riders, these 5 riders. So I don't think Soudal Quickstep will be okay with this breakaway going all the way. So they'll want all of this to come back together to see a sprint between the big guns, is my assumption for the final of the race. And a reminder, those big guns are Jasper Philipsen for Alpecin, the Premier Tech. I keep saying De Koning because it's such a recurring team name the last couple of years, but those 2 Alpecin Premier Tech have Jasper Philipsen as their sprinter, and of course together with an okay roster about him today. So Jonas Ricard also present, and we also have Aaron Doxo and Belmans. So 4 riders for Alpecin Premier Tech. One of them is in this front group, and then in the peloton behind we have Soudal Quickstep with Tim Merlier also. So the head-to-head for today is Tim Merlier and Philipsen, but there's some other riders present too. Jasper Stuyven, for example, can be a lead out for Merlier or can go on to the attack. We have not seen him yet. He's been quite silent in today's race, so maybe waiting for a late attack. Here we've got, I think that's Aaron Dox in this front group. Bengt Dalmans is right in the wheel. I see in the chat that you're asking how long the race is. I know that the race in total is about 80 to 100 laps. Anywhere in between. It's dependent on... The reality is it kind of depends on on when the race started. It started a bit late, so that can result in less laps in total. So I'll try to get you an update on which lap we have right now versus how many laps are left as soon as I know. Because I'm also in the dark as we speak. Quite a few people out there in Herentals enjoying the festive events here at Herentals Fietst and Feest. We've got the information about Aaron Dox on the left bottom, but to kind of pin it together, a young talent on Alps and Premier Tech. He's a puncher rider. I had the pleasure and suffering of riding with him in Mallorca in March, and let's just say that he's a bit more fit than me. So as a consequence, he rode a little bit faster, but he's got a couple of wins on the board in the last couple of years, but I don't think that's the most relevant part for him at the moment. I think the reality is that he's trying to develop as a rider. He's trying to grow into a rider next to cyclocross because NCX is a big name already, but on the road, he's trying to build up towards maybe being an Ardennes character. So Liège-Bastogne-Liège, and before that, Flèche Wallonne and so forth in the Amstel Gold Race. That's more his type of racing. And there's plenty of hilly races outside of that on the calendar that he can be a part of on the road cycling calendar. But I think his focus will remain on cyclocross for the time being as well, because let's just say he's pretty good at it. Anyway, these 5 riders are still our breakaway. If I had to guess, a gap of maybe 10-15 seconds on the peloton behind, but that's not an unovercomable gap. So that's still the largest gap we've had today. So we cannot deny that fact. Quite a technical parcours with quite a few corners, so it's good that the rain has disappeared, because otherwise there might have been a bit of trouble with potential crashes, and I hope we don't get crashes today. Hope we can stay in a safe manner when it comes to the riders today. But hey, quick intervene. We all know this is a post Tour de France criterium, and that means we just had the Tour de France where Tadej Pogacar won the Tour de France for, well, the 5th time, equaling the official record and 2 less than the quote-unquote unofficial record. But I don't think this live stream is the moment to have that discussion. But we had a Belgian on the podium, though. Remco Evenepoel came second, and he's the man that won the other 2 post-Tour criteriums in the last week. And that's what I kind of wanted to bring up, because it feels like these post-Tour criteriums, who, let's be honest about it, are a bit of an attack in this front group, and it looks like we've got a 1-2-1, and Milan Fretin, I think, is the one taking that little sprint here. Maybe there's a little prize on the line there. I didn't get the memo, so I'm just guessing. It's coming back together. That was definitely an intermediate sprint in the parcours here. In the peloton, we have the man from Shifting Gear Spacing, trying to take a look whether I see any teammates of him in the race, and I don't see that. So that has to be the one man, which is Arthur Geens at the front of the peloton now, pulling like a madman. And we've got, I think, Milan waiting on the peloton. So he's going to want to maybe save some energy for the final sprint. So to give some behind the scenes, I think it's fair that I do so. These events are like specified for a certain length. So because of that, we don't know 100% how many laps there are going to be by the end. And in a couple, hopefully in a couple minutes, maybe in 10 minutes, whatever, we might have a better view on when the actual end of the race is. But for now, it's just we'll go with it and we'll see how it goes. But if I had to guess, we're probably somewhere in the area of 40% into the race, maybe 50%, maybe 35%. Well, we'll see later. Now, I was speaking earlier, Tour de France has just finished. There was not much excitement when it comes to the fast place in that Tour de France. It was pretty clear before the race that Tadej Pogacar was the best climber. You always hope for a bit of a battle in the race, of course, because I'm the type of cycling enthusiast that wants to see the fight. And we didn't really see that fight for first place, but we did see that fight for not just third place, but also second place, with Remco Evenepoel eventually finishing on that second place, partially thanks to the crash of Jonas Vingegaard happening in the at the start of the third week. But it's a massive achievement for Remco Evenepoel, and you have seen him prove that principle wrong, because I think he started to doubt it himself. Before this Tour de France, I saw some doubt in the man. We've got a split up in the breakaway. 2 riders off the front and 2 off the back, and I think Fretin might be back in the peloton. Mauro's definitely... Rune Gergots is moving. A move by Rune Gergots right now, where one of the either Powell Sausen or shifting gears people on the wheel. We'll see them come through in a second there, but it's definitely Bengt Dahlman still in that front 2 riders. Let's take a look what breakaway is forming, with Rune is definitely joining up the road. Bengt Dahlman still part of that 2-man leading group. Aaron Dox is back in the peloton. Mauro Karlitz as well. So they've had their fun for a second, but it's holding on to the peloton again for a bit. We got some pretty serious cobbles in this city circuit. We're not talking Paris-Roubaix cobbles, but they're not bad. On the left bottom, we see some information on Milan Fretin currently riding for Cofidis, as, to be honest, one of the most prominent riders in their team. Not the biggest World Tour team in the world, or actually, I think they might have dropped to Pro Team. 4 riders in this front group. It is indeed Rune and Matthijs van Kerkhoven in 3rd position. We've got a rider from Atar at the back. And I think that's shifting gears in 2nd place, but it looks like it. 5 riders right here are Rune Gergots involved, so that was the last attacker we saw, the last down. Looks like Milan Fretin's right here on the POV camera. I think that's in the peloton at the moment. So in the break where we have at least Arthur Geens and Rune Gergots. I think Matthijs van Kerkhoven present for Visma Leasebike in that group as well. Still part of the development team officially, if I recall, but I assume that transfer will happen at the end of the season. We got a boy from Flanders Valwaze, so that has to be either Van Ho. I think that we have also a Flanders Valwaze rider closing it down. Peloton is definitely back, so the breakaway has been eaten by the Peloton. Very sad, but I think that will only mean that we'll see more attacks at the moment. So, and speak of the devil, there goes a Flanders Valwaze rider, and I must confess, I'm really sad that team is seemingly disappearing, losing their sponsorship. I hope they can find a way to continue attacking together with a man from Alpes and Premier Tech. There's 4 riders of that team in. Was that a move by Sulal Quickstep? Maybe a Merlier? I don't know. That didn't look like it with Jasper Stuyven. Haven't really seen Jasper Stuyven in the race so far, so he's been playing a bit invisible on the live stream. Let's see what's happening at the front. 1 Cofidis, 2 Cofidis. Is that Fritin and Biermans present in this front segment? That's not a break anymore. That's a peloton. Yeah, I don't think we've got a peloton, a breakaway at the moment. So it looks like the peloton is prepping for a little ensemble here. And are we going to see an attack, or Cofidis is going to try and keep it together right now? There we go. That's our man, Tim Merlier, one of the favorites of today's event. He's the best sprinter in the world in my book, but that is subjective. Even though his stats is probably objective at this point because he keeps winning everywhere by like 17 bike lengths. Rune Hergots on the right side of the screen next to the Powell 1000 people. I think that might be Jasper just in front of Rune Hergots, but I'm not completely sure. But Merlier is trying his best to stay in the draft of, I assume, Mauro Kuilits or Nils Verdijk, depending on which riders have cameras on the bike today. Definitely Mauro. And this on the right here is a Cofidis rider, which means that Merlier must be relatively to the front of the peloton then. By the way, a reminder, I have currently no view on which lap we are. I know that there's supposed to be roughly 80 to 90 kilometers in this event, laps of 1.8 kilometers, but we started a bit late, so the laps might have been adapted. And I'm afraid I've not gotten the memo of when the actual final happens, so hopefully we receive some warning of when the sprint or potential final lap comes later in the race. But we've got Mauro Kuilits at the front of the peloton with, I think that's Jasper. Yeah, that's not Jasper. Sorry, that's not Jasper Philipsen. I mean, either Jonas Ricard or Leonard Belmont in second position there. But okay, quick question to the chat. Who do you think is going to be the first rider to cross the line in this event? Are we going to see Tim Merlier take it, who, let's be honest, is not from the region? Or Jasper Philipsen, who is not a Herentals hero, but a local hero next door? We've got 2 riders from Lotto in the race. I'm going to be honest. That's painful because my cheat sheet, my start list, only has 1 Lotto rider, so I have no clue who the second Lotto rider in this race is. My paper is clearly not up to date with the amount of people that are in this race, but hey. Jasper de Buist is what my producer is telling me in my right ear. So Jasper de Buist and Mauro Kuilits are the 2 riders from Lotto Intermarché in this race. A team that's been struggling in the big races. And I think that's partially because the gap between bigger teams and smaller teams are getting larger and larger. Looks like both Lotto boys are getting in the breakaway. I think that's Frederik Frison on the wheel. Can't be certain because it's quite pixelated, so looks like I'm watching the race on a toaster there for a second, but yeah, it has to be Frison. Big man riding for Pinarello Q36.5. Cofidis guys relatively at the back of the peloton right now. I think this camera must then be on the wheel off. Whew. I'm trying to figure it out. Has to be the breakaway because Jasper de Buys is here. So 2 Cofidis riders, 2 Lottos in this group. Milan Fretin right here being very prominent together with his teammate Jente Biermans. Virtual Cyclist in the chat says, Orbea bikes are beautiful. I like the design pretty much too, but there's quite a few pretty bikes in the peloton, in my opinion. Motorbike overview. We've got Frederik Frison at the front with Jasper de Buys and Mauro Keilitz in that front segment. Milan Fretin also present together with a teammate in. Is that Biermans in this group as well? Yes, there's 2 Cofidis there. And a Soudal Quickstep. And I'm trying to figure out who it is. I assume Dries van Gestel. Is that a Merlier band on the arm? I can't tell from here, I'll be honest. In the chat, people are asking how many laps there are. I'm gonna confess, I have no clue. That's a sad reality. I'm not up to date with where we are in the race. I hope that I get to know as soon as possible, so let's hope my producer tells me in my ear at some point. I hope we get a bit of a warning before we get to the final lap, Brent, in chat. Anyway, breakaway, roughly 6-7 riders. That's the vibe we're going with. I think 6 in total, including the rider of which we're now seeing the back wheel camera shot. That is Mauro on the right there. Jasper is the Lotto rider on the left in the wheel of the Cofidis riders. And in the peloton, it is Rune Gergots coming out in that beautiful Belgian NC jersey, national champ jersey for UAE Team Emirates at the front pulling. So, yeah, that man is taking control of the race. He's kind of lonely. He's got no teammates in this race, so he kind of has to do everything himself. And then, oh, they're really sprinting through the streets of Herentals, aren't they? Milan Fretin, you got to save some energy for the sprint, buddy. I feel like Cofidis has been staying together quite a bit in this race, so a bit of a Chrono des Nations duo time trial is what I feel like. But yeah, these 6 riders in this breakaway don't have the biggest gap in the world. I think that is Tim Merlier in this breakaway, by the way. I see some Belgian bands on the arm. I'd like to believe I can recognize Tim Merlier pretty easily, but from this camera, it's not the easiest thing to do. The tempo is definitely going up compared to the earlier laps, so we've got 6 riders in this front group, and the peloton is actually barely coming to the corner in the background, so Rune's got a job to do if he wants to close this breakaway, but it's mostly up to Alpecin now, right? Because they're not present in this front group, and Jasper Philipsen together with Ricard, with Belmans, and with, what's Mr. Fourth? Aaron Dox. They're going to have to do something, because they're now in a very lost position, and Jasper Philipsen is one of the local area heroes, so they got to get it together. But there in the background, we see that the peloton is not going at a Sunday tourist tempo, so it seems like it might just slowly come back together at this point. Frison is definitely vibing through the streets of Herentals right now with the 5 riders on his wheel. A reminder, it is Biermans and also Frison. No, not Frison. Frison is the guy at the front. Biermans and Fretin for Cofidis. Then also Mauro Keilitz and Jasper de Buys. And I think it might be Tim Merlier for Quickstep, but I'm still not 100% sure. I'd like to see a good camera shot of his face or his arms, because he's got the Belgian NC on his arms. I think I see it, but I'm not completely sure. If you're in the chat, you're welcome to confirm it. Or unconfirm it if I'm wrong. Peloton about 9 to 10 seconds behind. Alpecin is one of the teams pulling in that peloton. But okay, back in the breakaway here, we have Tim Merlier indeed in the breakaway together with Mauro Kalitz. We can see it on the right top. Jente Biermans, Milan Fretin, Frison, and also Jasper de Buys. So, strong group, actually. I would argue two of the three best sprinters in the race. As in Jasper is obviously one of those three, but he's not in this breakaway. Fretin and Merlier are pretty fast. Jasper de Buys on his day can also do a pretty solid sprint. I've sent a pigeon to the race organization, hoping that they tell us how many laps are left in this event. But for the time being, we have the 6-man breakaway of the front, and I gotta repeat, Tim Merlier with a roller coaster of a season so far. That man started off pretty sadly with an injury, and an injury that ended up taking him out for most of the first part of the season, the entire preseason, missing the likes of Gent Wevelgem and so forth. Eventually coming back, and I think riding Paris-Roubaix as one of his first races, which bit of a challenge just after injury. But if we then look further, he started winning. He started winning almost his first couple of races. So it weren't the biggest races in the world, of course. But then he came to the biggest race in the world about a month ago, the Tour de France, and won 3 stages in it. Some of them super impressive, especially stage 8 in Bergerac. Ola got a bit of a sprint in this breakaway, and we see that we have Fretin versus Jasper de Buist, I assume. And Fretin is now coming out of the lead-out wheel. Kalitz may be doing a lead-out right now for the Buist on the right side of the road. The camera's trying to run away from the riders, and it looks like we're gonna have... Is that still the Buist at the front? I think the Lotto rider might have had it. I think Lotto had it there. The camera was a bit too shaky to recognize which Lotto rider. My first assumption would have been the Buist because he's the sprinter of the two, but it looked more like Kalitz in my head. But it could be wrong. In the peloton, it is Alpecin doing the work, so that's the expected activity here because they don't have anyone in the breakaway. They have to chase, and gap's not gigantic, and they have the men to chase this breakaway. Merlier on the attack is a brave action. I wonder if there's prizes for these intermediate sprints because Fretin won the first one, got second on the second sprint, and a Lotto rider took the second intermediate sprint. Hey, the sprints might just be for show for the audience, which I'm pretty sure the audience locally is loving it because I've said it before, that is the essence of an event like this. The essence is to bring as many people that share the passion of cycling together and want to enjoy seeing their Tour de France idols like Tim Merlier in this breakaway up close. And they're certainly doing that when he's in this breakaway. But let's be honest about it, the gap is coming smaller because they're riding a bit slowly at the moment, which means that the peloton is coming back and will most likely be the one that fights for the victory later between most likely Merlier and Philipsen. And honestly, I can't wait to see the outcome because I have no clue who's going to win this race. So we'll see who finishes first, shall we? But okay, let's see if another breakaway is forming. I can see I'm full screen at the moment on live stream. I want to go back to the race. I want to see the race. Because I want to see who is going to be our next attacker in this breakaway as soon as possible. Can't call it a lead out. Hopping over the potholes on the road. Just about 150 meters to go in this lap. I still have no clue how many laps we have left, so getting a little bit worried that we might just see a final sprint at some point. I think the rule from this point onwards is if nobody tells us how many laps there are on the race, then we're going to just go with the flow and commentate every sprint like it's the last one. And I want everyone in chat to act like every sprint is the last one. But right now, Pauwelsausen is the team at the front of the peloton. Small gap in the middle of the group, but that's not going to matter too much. That is going to come back together. Definitely well represented at the front now. A team that is mostly focused on cyclocross, but tries to do a couple road cycling races or at least quits throughout the season as well. In the wheel, that's a quick step ride. Is that Jasper? The first time we see Jasper Stuyven in the wheel there. He's been a bit invisible in today's live stream. Jonas Ricard in his wheel. Behind that, we have Flanders Balwa. Ricard coming to the front. He's chatting, having a chat to the Pauwelsausen guys. Maybe telling them to keep going. There's a gap behind this group, though. Group of roughly 7-8 riders. But I think the Lotto rider might be closing it behind there. Nah, could have gone if there was more cooperation there, but we had some Group 1 syndrome here. Nobody wanted to invest all their energy in getting this going, and well, for Alpecin, they want to get Phillips into the finish, so there's no incentive for Ricard to go all out in that group. But Pauwelsausen and Jasper Stuyven on a bit of a move right now. 2 riders up front. Jasper had a pretty good season so far, and it's not just in terms of results, but the reality with Solo Quickstep is that with Remco leaving last year, and yes, Merlier still being a massively prominent rider in the team, carrying the team as well, they still weren't necessarily respectable in the Cobble Classics, and I think that's what they were looking for with signings like Dylan van Baarle is one, but I wasn't too bullish on that one. I was more bullish on the Jasper Stuyven signing, and the reason for that is simple. That man can get you top 10 results, can get you top 5 results, and in terms of Paris-Roubaix, got them a podium this year. And that is exactly the results, the respectability in those races that the team was missing in the last couple of years. But we see Vlad van Mechelen at the front of... Can we call this a breakaway? I will. 6 riders up front, and Vlad van Mechelen is the leader of this group at the moment, together with, once again, Mr. Bengt Dalmans from Cyclist Van den Plas in the wheel. And Vlad had a pretty solid Tour de France. Like, he's never going to be the guy that, or at least he was not the guy yet. Maybe in the future he can be. He was not the guy yet that could compete with actual stage victories, but he's competent enough in level that he was definitely present in the race. We saw him on the Champs-Élysées stage at the front of the group attacking a few times. So that man's a pretty strong rider when he needs to be, and very young. So in a couple of years, you'll get to know him more, I think, on the big screen. But in this front group, we have... So Jasper Stuyven, Vlad van Mechelen. I think that's still Jasper Stuyven. Yes, it is. A man from the Pauwelsausen team. And I think that is Jarno Bellens from Balwaze Het Poetsbureau at the front right now. I can hear a motorbike man shouting in the background. But okay, 6 riders in this front group. And so in this breakaway, we've got roughly 6 riders up front. And in that group, we have the likes of Jasper Stuyven, 1 rider from Pauwelsausen, 1 from Flanders Balwaze. To remind you, Pauwelsausen is here with Lars Dalmans, Wies Nuyens, and Jordi Corsus. And Flanders Balwaze has Vincent van Hemel and Wout van Hoof. So one of those, two of those five riders are present in this breakaway. I'm gonna be honest, I can't recognize them. I think that might be Watt in second position, but I'm not completely sure. I think that might be Q36.5 as well. Nah, it can't be. I'm trying to count here. 1, 2, 3. Is that a Q36.5 Pinarello rider in fifth position? We'll know soon, I think, if we can get him to the front. But at the moment, it's Jasper Stuyven showing himself to the city of Herentals into the last couple meters of the lap. But okay, six-man breakaway up the road as we speak, and the peloton is not too far behind. Once again, Alpecin not involved, so Quickstep is involved in this breakaway, with Tim Merlier still as a secondary candidate in the peloton behind. But Mr. Jasper Stuyven is present. Alpecin, with Jasper Philipsen in the peloton and three teammates by his side. Jonas Ricard as the ultimate lead-out man in this event. But also Leonard Belmont and Aaron Dox. Aaron Dox more the punchy type, so I said it before, not exactly his perfect parkour. If I had to if I have to guess at the moment, I do think it's gonna come back together. But hey, I don't know either. So I guess we'll find out later. Bit of a shout out though to Mr. Bengt Dalmans, because the man in the red in this breakaway is not a lotto rider. He rides for Cyclist van den Plas Hepa, a smaller team, a more local club team, I assume. And he's been in like 3 of the last 4 breakaways. So he's present. He's definitely visible in the race. Gotta say, quite happy that the weather is not. And that's not exactly what we're hoping for in a post Tour de France criterium. Because, well, they want to survive, the riders, for the next couple of races. On the right bottom, we can see 23 degrees right now. Ooh, it's actually pretty warm. There's a bit of wind, but the reality is we're in a city circuit, so the wind most likely won't influence the race too much. On the left bottom, we see Wout van Hoof. So I'm going to guess based on that the Flanders Baloise rider in this breakaway is Wout van Hoof. And also because it's evening, the temperatures are going to come down slowly but surely by the end of the evening here. I don't think there's that much left of the race at the moment. I said it before, I don't know the exact laps, so they might just start sprinting at some point, but Rune Gerrigods is the man that is controlling the tempo in the peloton right now. So not even putting up Alpecin to work, so he won't... Jasper won't be complaining, as in Jasper Philipsen. Jasper Stuyven also won't be complaining because he's in the breakaway. But on the left bottom, we can see lots of interesting information still by Wout van Hoof. For a second there, we could see actual statistics for the rider, which was quite a funny thing. But okay, 6 rider breakaway still. Gap is just about 10-15 seconds is my assumption at the moment. It's going to come down to a conclusion later, but we're slowly but surely going forward in the race. But okay, this edition is most likely going to be a battle between Tim Merlier, maybe Jasper Stuyven in this front group, and Jasper Philipsen in this race. The last couple of editions had some pretty big names on the roster, including Wout van Aert with three times crossing the line first in an event like this in Herentals. So 3 of the last 4 years together, with the fourth one being maybe in 2024, Binyam Girmay. I think he might have won in the green jersey that year. Of course, after winning the green jersey at the Tour de France prior to that. Today our focus is mainly on Soudal Quickstep and Alpecin Premier Tech, of course, with Merlier Stuyven, and also a third man at Soudal Quickstep in Dries van Gestel, and at Alpecin Jasper Philipsen, Jonas Rickaert, Aaron Dox, and Leonard Belmans. Then Cofidis is there with Milan Fretin and Biermans, but they were very active in the breakaway so far, so let's see if they have something left for the final sprint. It looks like Lotto might be pacing the breakaway back now. There we go, with Jonas Rickaert in second wheel. I have to say, the fact that Alpecin is riding in, am I correct in saying 2 different kits? Because I swear there was a blue Alpecin kit and a Merci Poupou kit there as well today in the race so far. And the Alpecin kit looks a lot like the Soudal Quickstep kit in like a zoomed out fashion. So let's hope we can recognize everyone properly as we enter the final of the race later. But okay, the gap is coming down slowly but surely, and I think this breakaway is about to be caught by the group behind, and it's indeed Alpecin that's trying to get it back together for the sprint of Jasper Philipsen. Wout van Hoof is trucking in this breakaway with Vlad van Mechelen and Bengt Dalmans in the wheel. And it is the Balwaze man that is in this breakaway, not the Pinarello guy, of course. It's Jarno Bellens from Balwaze het Poetsbureau. And as we speak, they are getting caught. Oh, still a small gap, but it's going to be caught pretty soon in a couple corners. Okay, Peloton is back with the breakaway, so the race can basically restart back to square one. And so far, it's calming down for a second. Stuyven was in the breakaway, but now is caught by the Peloton. Are we going to see more moves, or is Alpecin going to try and keep it together for the sprint now? We see that on the left side. I think Jasper Philipsen is slowly but surely moving up. He's now in about 8th position. The pink man that is mostly to the right. Jonas Rickaert is the other pink man on screen. And, oh la 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 la, is that our man, Jasper Philipsen, the local hero in the breakaway. I know he's from Mol, not from Herentals, but same stuff, right? He is going into a breakaway, so no waiting for the final sprint. Jasper Philipsen with an attack right now and being chased down by Mauro Kailitz, Jasper de Buys, Fretin, and Bierman. So strong 5-man breakaway. You've got a camera at the finish line, handheld, legendary. Whoever's holding that is a hero at the moment, but do we see a response behind it? Still Rune Herentals, who's not going too fast right there in the peloton. So Jasper Philipsen looking good in that front group. There he is, Jasper Philipsen won stage 17 at the Tour de France, but maybe on a personal level didn't get as much success at the Tour de France that he might have hoped for. Is that harsh? Because definitely the first 2 weeks were disappointing for him personally. The first couple of sprints were a problem for the team. both when it comes to Jasper Philipsen sprinting and an imperfect lead out almost every time too. So it just didn't click. But on stage 17, they went into the breakaway, Jasper Philipsen together with Mathieu van der Poel, and they brought it home in a very fashionable way. Just not enough to be competitive for the green jersey, which was most likely a big goal for the team though. Nonetheless, I'm happy to see him vibing on the bike today, and I can't wait to see him in more races for the rest of the season, because there's quite a few smaller races that he's definitely going to be riding in the latter part of this year. And I don't think we can call the Benelux Tour too small, huh? Okay, 5-man breakaway led by Jasper Philipsen, one of the two favorites for today's race. Mauro Keilitz and Jasper de Buist in the wheel there, and also Jente Biermans and Fretin. So, we've got a man on the right side. That's a Soudal quick-stepper. We'll pretend we didn't see that. 5-man breakaway up ahead, and a gap towards the peloton where we have I have to assume it's maybe Soudal Quickstep pacing at this point, because they are the team that is not represented in this front group. Then again, Herentals has been pretty vibrant in doing a lot of work himself to close down these breakaways. Even though he's a lone man, so he has to win from an attack. He can't really do it from a sprint on paper. You never know in a criterium, of course. But for now, this breakaway is going quite fast. And I think that might actually be a Herentals spacing behind. So the man in the Belgian jersey is not giving up completely. But okay, breakaway. Once again, I repeat, Jasper Philipsen, 2 riders from Lotto next to him. That is Mauro Keilitz and Jasper de Buist. And also 2 riders from Cofidis. And that includes Milan Fretin and Jente Biermans. So some pretty solid riders in this group. Here we have Mr. Gergots in the peloton. Still a quick step chilling right there. With the likes of Stuyven and Merlier not really fanatically chasing behind. So they got to watch out. They don't want this breakaway to get away so easily. I've said it before, we don't really have a track on exactly how many laps we have left. I hope we find out before we get to the end of the race. But even if we don't, we'll have fun commentating and enjoying this as a viewer, right? But either way, someone in chat asks what other quits are coming up. The reality is that the Belgian post-tour criterium scene is a bit dire at the moment. And that's why these 3 events that still exist, which this one specifically, Herentals, for example, but also Aalst and, oh god, I forgot the other one. And a third one, we'll go with that. Those 3 are super important because they're the last 3 Belgian post-tour criteriums left. I think there's still like 10 to 20 in the Netherlands, but I know we claim Mathieu van der Poel as a Belgian, but we can't claim every single Dutch crit either, so let's not do that either. Hopefully in the future we have a lot of Belgian quits coming. But my producer has told me in my ears that there's a possibility that we might be in the last 3 laps, but there's no certainty of it. So if they suddenly start sprinting, I'm gonna assume we're in the final. And right now, this breakaway looks like they've got a pretty solid chance if that's the case, because 3 laps is like 5.6 kilometers on this course. And these guys are pretty fast. Pretty fast, definitely, right now. Are we going to see a podium of, if I had to guess, maybe a Philipsen, Fretin, de Buist? Because that's how I see the strength in sprint, personally. Mauro Keilitz is riding for his teammate, de Buist, so de Buist is definitely saving energy for the sprint. But there comes a peloton. Peloton not completely gone, but they're not super close either. Okay. We'll see. We'll see if this is the last 2 or 3 laps. I cannot confirm nor deny. I really don't know. If I knew, it would have been great, but it will be great either way. This has to be the peloton that's quite a bit behind. That is maybe the biggest gap we've seen behind the breakaway so far. But these 6 riders, I repeat, Jasper Philipsen in the pink kit, or at least pink with white in the middle. Then 2 Lotto riders in the red. That is Mauro Kalitz riding for his arguably leader in this race, maybe for that team, Jasper de Buist. And next to that, Milan Fritin and Jente Biermans, 2 sprinty types. Fritin, the better flat sprinter, though, in the roster of Cofidis. Jasper Philipsen, by far the fastest sprinter on his day, though. So on paper, even with the leadouts of the other teams, he should have the biggest chance of winning this if this comes down to the sprint. And the gap is prominent, so I'm going to assume. So I've been told by my producer that these are not the last 2-3 laps, because they're aiming for a finish in just about 20 to 30 minutes. We got hyped too early, I'm sorry, but I'm afraid we're going to have to enjoy this festival a bit longer, which is fine. And I think the people by the side of the road are loving it too, so I don't think they're complaining. But hey, we have to keep ourselves ready, because finish could come at any point in this race, quite literally, which is quite a funny principle. So many people out there in Herentals at the moment, despite, well, it might be the best weather for it today, to be honest, over the last couple of weeks, because there's been so many heat waves across Europe, to the point that I don't think these riders would be enjoying being on the bike in 40 degrees. It being 23 degrees today, roughly in that area. A little bit of rain earlier, that's not ideal, but maybe it lightens maybe puts a bit more oxygen. Oh, we've got a bit of a sprint happening. Is that Mauro Kalitz with Jasper de Buist in the wheel right now? Is it going to be Jasper de Buist sprinting against Fritin right now with Jasper Philipsen on the right? Let's see if Jasper Philipsen can come around, but de Buist is going a bit early. Fritin tries to come around. We have on the right side Jasper Philipsen now in the corner coming around, and Fritin is not going to make it, because Jasper Philipsen is the fastest of the 3 riders in this group, and he takes that sprint with, I won't say relative ease, because that was definitely not the easiest sprint I've seen in a while for Jasper Philipsen. But okay, looks like, based on what I've seen so far, that our breakaway is going off screen now. I guess we'll find out. There we go. That was a rough sprint between the 3. That was Jasper Philipsen ahead of Milan Fritin, and I think Jasper de Buist in 3rd place there. Coming back together now, so was one of the intermediate sprints, is my guess. Still a few puddles on the road, so the rain has not completely worked itself away. That was a flash of the of peak Jasper Philipsen we saw there in the sprint, moving around on the outside, passing Fritin in the last stretch, and bringing that sprint home with I won't say utter ease, because it wasn't. He had to work for it. But okay, we've got roughly the last 20 minutes of this event, is my guess. And still a breakaway of 6 riders, and I cannot see the peloton behind. So this break of 6 riders, including, again, Jasper Philipsen, who just won the last intermediate sprint, together with Milan Fritin and Biermans. Fritin won the first intermediate sprint, and Kalitz and de Buist for Lotto, and I think de Buist might have won the second intermediate sprint. So the 3 intermediate sprint winners are in this front segment of the race right now. I'm gonna have a quick hydration sip, because these riders are suffering, but I'm suffering too. Commentating is a very hard job. But okay, let's get back to the race, shall we? Who is going to follow up Wout van Aert, who won last year, who also won today? Pretty harrowing finish in terms of, I think, Jensen Plowright from Alpecin Premier Tech and Wout van Aert were sprinting side by side, and in doing so crossed the line almost identically. And as a result of that, the organizers announced the wrong winner. They announced, yes, Jensen Plowright as the winner. It didn't end up being him, and to be honest, their photo finish was completely odd. Gotta pause that thought for a second because we have a move up front, and I think that's Jente Biermans going alone for a second here. And Jonas Ricard is now bridging together with, is that Merlier and Herentals in the wheel towards the second group? Biermans is the man up front now. We've got a survey at the bottom in 1 second. I don't know where that survey is. I'm going to be completely honest. I don't know where you can vote on this. Regardless of whether you know how to vote for this, I want you to put in the chat right now, is Jasper Philipsen, Tim Merlier, Fritain, or someone else going to win this? And if you're thinking someone else, or if you even are just supporting someone in chat, tell me in chat who you are supporting. On the right top, you can scan that QR code to vote. I just noticed. So that is how you can vote on who gets to... I'll do the same. I'll do the same. I'll play with you, okay? Let me try and scan the QR code as we speak. Who am I going to vote for? I should be completely unbiased as commentator, but I am going to go for... I think it's going to be the local hero. I think I'm going to say Jasper Philipsen. Hey, we'll see at the end. There we go. Okay, I accidentally just made my own name, Jasper Philipsen, in the voting system. So Jasper Philipsen, me, just voted for Jasper Philipsen. Back to the seriousness of the race. Jente Biermans is the man at the front. And we have Jonas Ricard coming towards him with Philipsen now on the right of the screen. Herentals in the Belgium NC colors. And is that Merlier, or... Let's try and find out as soon as possible. It doesn't... I'm not getting the Merlier physique when I look at him. Am I wrong? We'll find out pretty soon though. But Ricard is pulling at the front. Small gap on the chasers. Chat says Merlier. I believe chat. Thank you, Virtual Cyclist 91. Small chasing groups. So definitely. Niels de Rosa says Van Gestel. I don't feel like he's a physique of Merlier, so I'm leaning to Van Gestel as well. Haven't seen him much in the race so far, so it would be logical that he makes a move right now. But does that mean Merlier is somewhere at the back of the chasing group? Guernsey in chat also confirms that it might be Dries Van Gestel. By the way, chat, do you enjoy being involved like this in the live commentary? I feel like it's fun that way. Then you're a part of the race, you know? But we see Biermans now trying to close these two men down. Yeah, I think that's definitely Dries Van Gestel, because a bit thinner built than Merlier. And also on top of that, not the Belgian ribbons on the side. Definitely Ricard at the front right now. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 2 Cofidis riders. Then we have 1 Lotto only now. And a bunch, Vlad van Mechelen maybe at the back together with 2 more Quick-Step riders. So Merlier has to be there, right? I think all 3 Quick-Steps are there. Yeah, Stuyven is there as well. Let's see. My guess is that it's roughly 10 to 15 kilometers, 10 to 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes left in the race. I don't know for certain, so we're going to have to guess when the actual sprint is. We've had 3 intermediate sprints so far, roughly every half an hour, so I think the next sprint is going to be the real sprint. Biermans together with Van Gestel with a bit of a gap, but now it's Lotto and Herentals coming to the front. Is that Herentals in the wheel there? When it comes to the votes, let's talk about it. In the chat, you have voted, and according to the chat, 66% says Tim Merlier is going to win the race. 21% says Jasper Philipsen. 3% says Fritain, 10% someone else. If you voted someone else, drop that name in the chat. Niels de Rosa confirms that Tim is riding a black bike. I'm going to be completely honest. On my screen, every bike looks black. Jasper Stuyven has a slight white frame and is at his fork, so definitely not the most black bike in the peloton here. Jasper de Buys is at the front right now. 2 riders from Alpes in the group, Ricard and Philipsen. Actually, small gap in the group here. We've got Stuyven, Vlad van Mechelen, Ricard, and Jasper de Buys. Behind that, do we have Soudal Quick-Step closing it, or is it Herentals again? I can't tell. De Melier clearly the fan favorite, or at least the chat favorite, to win this race. Maybe the locals want to see Jasper Philipsen win, but that is different. I'm on the side of the YouTube chat, I'm sorry. Yeah, the gap is getting a tiny bit bigger. Is anyone going to close it, or do we have a 4-man breakaway up the road? Okay, so in about 7 laps, my producer in my ear has told me that in 7 laps we've got a point sprint, not the final sprint. So we got to keep in mind, so far the point sprints have been won by the first one, Milan Fretin for Cofidis, the second one for Lotto, I think it was the Buist, but I'm not completely sure whether it was the Buist or Keilitz. The third sprint was won by Jasper Philipsen. 4 men at the front of the race right now. Jonas Ricard, the lead-out man of Jasper Philipsen on paper. Vlad van Mechelen for Bahrain Victorious at the front here. Then Jasper de Buist in 3rd position. And in 4th position we have the 3rd man at Roubaix. Also the guy that tried to win stage 17 of this year's Tour de France, but fell to stay away sadly, Jasper Stuyven. And well, the other Jasper won that day. So Philipsen took that stage home afterwards. Looks like the gap behind is certainly bigger than earlier. So I think the peloton behind might be coming back together, might be merging again. But let's see if there's any Group 2 syndrome or not, whether they collaborate or not. Again, on the right top, you can see the composition. That's the word I was looking for of this breakaway. We have Jonas Ricard, we have Lot van Mechelen, Jasper de Buist, and also Dries van Gestel. Is Dries van Gestel according to the list on the right top, not Jasper Stuyven? I'm going to have to look up close. I think it's Jasper Stuyven though. Chat can confirm or not. Because I think Dries van Gestel is wearing a black helmet. I could be wrong on that. That is definitely Jasper Stuyven. But okay, we see the peloton behind now, so the gap is not gigantic, it is still overcomable. It's about 50 meters. And the reality is the people in this front group also don't want to spend their bickies, as Australians like Patrick Bro would say. Then again, Vlad van Mechelen is trucking at the front. And that after a pretty crazy Tour de France, because the weather in that first 10 days was very hot and definitely affected the riders. Maybe that's why Jasper Philipsen struggled a bit in the first couple of sprints. I know I'd be struggling to follow for 1 kilometer in the peloton, but that's beside the point. 4 riders crossing the line here. That is not a sprint right now, so just crossing the lap line. So from what I've been told, the next sprint is in about 4 to 5 laps, maybe 3 at this point, and we'll see a point sprint there. So an intermediate sprint, basically. By the way, if you wonder what those signs on the left and right every now and then that says oversteek mean, that is the Dutch word for crossing. So whenever the riders are passed, people are allowed to cross the road parkour and get across. You don't just get commentary here, you also get Dutch lessons, whether you like it or not. Okay, in this peloton, I think that might have been shifting gears pacing at the front. So if that's the case, that is Arthur Geens. The Kings of the Flemish Mountains stay in the peloton for now. That is Mr. Siebe Philips and also Niels Verdijk. Just about 5 laps, 4.5 laps now to the actual point sprint. Roughly. Anyway, this race is brought to you by these partners. It's part of a celebratory event in Herentals. a post-Tourcriterium, but there's other events. I think there's an after party tonight, but if you're watching the YouTube live stream, you're most likely not in the area of Herentals, so you're gonna have to pretend you're looking forward to the after party, as is my case. I'm in the UK, so it's a bit far to hop over. But hey, our four-man breakaway is still up the road, including Jasper Stuyven. Jasper Philipsen is not in here. It's Jonas Rick. Look for the navy blue Alpes in the Premier Tech. I keep wanting to say the Koenig. Don't look for the navy blue kit here because their kit in this race is indeed the Merci Poupou pink jersey. In tribute of, having a stroke there for a second, in tribute of Pulidor. Robert in chat asks what round, what lap we are. What I know is that we have roughly 4 laps to go to the next point sprint. From there onwards, we're in the dark. So I assume roughly 15 laps after that maybe is the final sprint, but the next sprint coming up will be the actual, the point sprint. We've had 3 point sprints, so 3 intermediate sprints so far. One by Fretin, the Fietst, and also Jasper Philipsen. Jasper Stuyven now actually trucking in this breakaway. So let's see if this breakaway does make it to the sprint. At this point, my guess would be yes. Because the peloton is not coming through that corner yet. Now they are, just as I say that, so maybe I might be wrong. If the peloton catches this breakaway before the sprint, it might be chaotic if it's right at the sprint, so let's hope we don't see any crashes or anything like that. This has to be the peloton with Flanders Balwaza pacing at the front and Matthijs van Kerkhoven and Sofov just sitting in. Okay, so this 4-man breakaway has about 5 to 10 seconds on the next group, on the chasing group. Might not be the full peloton, might be 2 pelotons at this point. We have about 3 laps, I think. Roughly 3 laps to the next intermediate sprint, is what I've been told. And then there's going to be X amount of time before we get to the actual final lap, which I don't know when that is. I'm going to be honest, I don't have an overview of the laps, so it's hard for me to tell you exactly when the race will finish. It should be, my guess, in the next 15 minutes. I think the end of the race will be roughly in 13 minutes, if I had to guess. But at the moment, it looks like this break is not going to make it to the point sprint. Because Soudal Quickstep is vibing just behind that. Let's see what we have here. They're getting caught. They're getting so caught. Herentals is pushing the final nail into the coffin there in that second group together with Soudal Quickstep. And the breakaway has been caught. I feel like it's getting dark, yeah. I hear people saying it in the chat as well. It's getting dark in the area of Herentals because it's also in the evening, but that will also make for a final glorious sprint. And Rune Hergots coming through the middle. Is he going to go with a flyer? It looks like it. No response by anyone else. Hergots with a gap, and he's flying away in the wheeled draft of the motorbike. And it's now Soudal Quickstep behind, trying to save the situation. And Hergots crosses the line at this intermediate sprint. Well, is it the intermediate sprint? Not completely sure. There was no sprint, so I assume it's just a lap. I think the sprint will come in about 1 to 2 laps, is my guess. But a solo break in Hergots, which he's pretty good at those, to be honest. Belgian national champion, so a fantastic result there, riding for UAE Team Emirates at the moment, but I think he's leaving the team. I'm not completely sure, but from my memory, Rune Hergots is leaving the team, and I don't remember what the rumors are, but it could have been Alpecin. I'm trying to figure it out as we speak, what the rumors are about Rune Hergots leaving UAE Team Emirates. I don't know. I really don't know where he's going. Nonetheless, he's definitely leaving UAE Team Emirates. Chat says Lotto. I would enjoy seeing Rune Hergots ride for Lotto. Especially in the Belgian champs jersey at the start of next year, you know, because he's going to be wearing that until June. Okay. Let's see. Is it me or are we kind of blurry here? But anyway, we're back. We're back. And we're gone again. Ay, chat. We're going to see something at some point. I promise. I promise. There we go. We can see the corner again. Please remain. And there comes Rune. There we go. Our man still has a proper gap on the chasing group. And the motorbike standing still because he realized that he rode past everybody. Anyway, our camera motorbike is out temporarily. But that was Herentals, and this is the gap towards the chasing group. And let's try to quickly say who's in there. This is Ricard together with both Cofidis boys, the entirety of Quickstep in there. So that has to include Merlier as well with Stuyven and Van Gestel. Fretin as well involved too. And that Lotto man looks to be Mauro Kailitz riding for Jas. Is there a Lotto man in there or am I just inventing that? I think I don't see any. No, there's a Lotto man at the back, so I think that's Jasper de Buist in last position in the group. But definitely Ricard and so, of course. On the right ear, I'm hearing that there's 2 laps to go in this race. And that has to be the final then. Okay, so the final sprint is supposedly coming in 2 laps. I'm not 100% sure, but we'll go with it. We'll just go at the flow and look at the final sprint here. We only have fixed cameras from this point, sadly, because the motorbike is not allowed to follow for the final sprint, which is a bit sad. We're working with limited images. So we're going to be seeing the riders come by at some point in the last 2 laps here. Not the easiest footage to work with when it comes to commentating, but just to remind you who's in this race, as this peloton is most likely out of it. In the front groups, we have Rune Herentals in the front group solo. Then the chasing group includes Jasper Philipsen, led by Ricard, so he's trying to keep it together for Philipsen. But also, Merlier is present together with 2 teammates in Van Gestel and Stuyven. So those are the go-to people. The Buist is there, and 2 riders from Cofidis in Fretin and Piermont. So to line up the sprinters for you, Merlier, Philipsen, those are there. They're there in the second group behind Herentals. Also Fretin and the Buist. That's my perception of the sprinters in that second group. Because Ricard was leading the group and Philipsen was in like 6th position. As you can see, there's people crossing right there. So the riders are definitely pretty far from the finish line here. There's 2 laps or 1.5 lap to go based on what I've been told. And if that is the case, then we're going to see the finish at some point. On paper, they should come to the finish line for the second last lap first. And well, if they're already sprinting by the time we see them on this camera, then well, we know that it's a final sprint. Then we know it was 1 lap instead of 2. But I'm actually quite hyped. There's something about not knowing what's happening in the race and then having to find out in the last 5 seconds. So, stressful finale in Herentals here at the Heylen Vastgoed post-Tourcriterium. We've got some flashing lights in the background there. Looks like a police car is coming. Maybe that's an indicator that the lap is almost done. Do we see... Looks like it's not really a lead out yet, so this has to be the second last lap here. They're going to cross the line, and it's still Herentals, still with a gap on the group behind. Is he going to crumble in the final lap is the question. It is now Soudal Quickstep pacing in this group with Van Gestel, and I think Stuyven and Merlier have to be there. I'm going to be honest, it's hard to see in the dark. Spoilers. I think Merlier is there. Fretin's definitely there. Philipsen is definitely there, I think. Final lap right now. So this is the final lap. 5-second gap, says Lampshade in chat. Thank you very much for timing with me. The gap has come down from 9 seconds to 5 seconds. And I guess we're going to find out in about 1.3 kilometers time who's going to win this race. Who's going to win this criterium? Who's going to follow up Wout van Aert as the winner of this Heylen, Vastgoed, Post-Tourcriterium, this peloton is out. I'm sorry, but these guys are not making it. Shifting Gears is still trying to make it happen here, but this peloton is basically the gruppetto of the day. People are crossing there, so the sprinters are not coming yet. Whew! Sitting forward in my seat, that's what you're doing as well. Get your popcorn, or it's probably already empty at this point, but the final sprint is about to come. I assume in about 20 seconds, 30 seconds. People are still crossing the road there, so they have to be about 800 meters away, a kilometer away at this point. They're going to have to close the road pretty soon. Are they doing it? Let's take a look. Let's take a look who's going to win. So again, Merlier was your fan chat favorite. Philipsen is present. Next to that, we've also got Fretin, the Beist. We've got some options here. If I had, I'm not a betting man, but the money of most people would be on Philipsen or Merlier here. Merlier, the fastest sprinter in the world, but stuff can happen here, especially with a local hero like Philipsen. The people are slowly but surely getting off the road, I think. There's one man standing in the middle, but there they come. There they come. Are we going to see a lead out? I can't see anything right now. You can't see anything, but we're going to try and commentate the dark right now. This is the last 150 meters, so we should be seeing a lead out, and I think that's happening. Herentals is not ahead. I think he's already called, but there's so many flashing lights and no riders. It is completely dark in Herentals, and I see riders at the front. Is that Philipsen at the front? That is Philipsen with Merlier in the wheel, and we're going to see the final camera soon, but Herentals is indeed caught, and this is the final stretch. Behind the lights, we see coming out of that corner in the pink Jasper Philipsen. Am I seeing that correctly? Yes, ahead of Tim Merlier and maybe Jasper Stuyven? Not completely sure, but it is indeed Jasper Philipsen who puts his name under Wout van Aert as the new victor of the Heylen Vastgoed Post-Tourcriterium. There we go. That's it, chat. That's all, folks. But I'm pretty sure that, yeah, Jasper Philipsen is the winner. Okay, we called it right. We called it correctly. We're not like the Tour of Denmark where they named the wrong winner, but Jasper Philipsen takes his second victory in the last month. Pretty much the same level as a Tour de France win, right? But he is the winner of this criterium, and I think the local people wanted to see that because he's from Mol, right next to Herentals. And yeah, that basically counts as a local hero in my book. I see you in chat, Guernsey. Calling it. There we go. Frison is sprinting for the leftover place in the peloton. A guy from the Kings of the Flemish Mountains also trying to sprint. I'm trying to figure out who's going to get some honorable positions here. And it looks like Fretin's going to get it here. But yeah, gotta say, I care about the podium only. I'm sorry, guys. Whew. This reminded me of that Barcelona team time trial at the Vuelta. But anyway, I think the organizers want to show you some interviews at some point. So I feel like we're gonna switch to that pretty much soon. But in the meanwhile, if you don't hear me at any point later, then this was my attempt at commentating. But this is a replay. We've got a replay. Okay, I want to see this first. Yeah, it's pretty clear. Jasper Philipsen on the inner corner. Merlier tried to come around, and I think that is indeed Jasper Stuyven in third place. I'm trying to figure it out, but white helmet has to be Jasper Stuyven. Herentals in fourth place. Heartbroken. Fretin fifth, and Vlad van Mechelen sixth. Ricard seventh place, and eighth place in the darkness there has to be... Whew. Biermans? No, the Beist. The Beist ahead of Biermans. So that's our top 9 so far. Don't know who that 10th person is. But anyway, how many UCI points for this race? Says Virtual Cyclist in the chat. I'm afraid Jasper's not getting anybody. But okay, that was the Heylen Vastgoed Post-Tourcriterium. Thank you very much for being here. But let's go to some interviews, shall we? No? On the right, we can see someone. Is that Fretin, number 6? I don't know. I also don't know if I'm supposed to be commentating at this point, but looks like nothing's happening, so I might as well fill your time, no? We're back with the finish. Interview's not ready yet. But I think in the meanwhile, while we are waiting, my final note on this criterium. Yes, these are not the most prestigious cycling events in the world, but they are important. The stage results right here are Jasper Philipsen and Tim Merlier and Jasper Stuyven. So that is the podium we indeed saw finishing right there. But what I was trying to convey there is these are important events, though. Like the post-tour criteriums are, they bring festivities to these Belgian cities where maybe there's like more local races usually where the Jasper Stuyvens of the world, the Jasper Philipsens of the world usually don't come. So to have them in a race like this, for people to, there we go. Jasper Philipsen's. There was no sign. I'm not completely sure. He just said that that was a tough race, that he's happy that he won, etc. So the usual business. But anyway, that was the Heylen Vastgoed post-tour criterium. Thank you very much for being here, and hey, maybe we'll see you back next year. But I also want to urge you to subscribe to the Safe Stream YouTube channel because I think I'll have some more live streams of races in the coming period, and also some smaller races like Guido Rijbroek Classic, which is a junior race, for example. So if you want to see the races that you don't normally see on like the HBO Maxes of the world, then subscribe to this channel and you'll see some more. But hey, that's the end. Thank you very much for being here.